Yes, sir.
Councilman. Good evening, everyone, and I would like to call to order the City Bowie regular City Council meeting of Monday, August 1st, 2022. It is now 8:01 p.m. I would ask that everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, could you, for the record, acknowledge whether or not we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor Adams, you have a quorum with yourself and council members Estev, Wolfley, and Harrison, as well as Mayor Pro Tem Boafo in attendance.
Thank you so very much. Moving on, at this time I'll open it to council members if there are any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we will now move on to citizen participation. Do we have any citizen participation this evening?
Yes, we have one person signed up to speak, and you also received one comment which will be attached to the minutes for the record.
Okay, at this time is Johns Teasdale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the Multimodal Access and Public Spaces Committee, better known as MAPS. And I'll be brief. Basically, I'm here to support the bicycle-friendly community program that you'll hear about later in new business. This is a national program that would offer national recognition to the city. This recognition would boost progress that the city has already made with the updated Trails Master Plan and Complete Streets policy. So we strongly endorse moving forward with this initiative. Moving to the transportation priority that also is going to be in new business, the city has proposed transportation priorities for many years. MAPS certainly endorses upgrading key transportation corridors in the city. We do want to highlight, however, that the city should not only advocate for these priorities, but also advocate for multimodal and complete street improvements associated with these projects. An example would be preserving the existing Walker-Biker Trail during the Maryland 197 upgrade. We have submitted to you a detailed listing of some of these projects, so I won't repeat all of those here. Suffice it to say that we support the transportation priority list, but we encourage taking a broader multimodal view to these projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teasdale. We will now move on to presentations. At this time, we'll have a proclamation recognizing the City of Bowie employees for their response to the explosion and emergency, and we will allow the city manager, please, to take the lead on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council and residents out in TV land. I'd like to read a proclamation, which is, as the Mayor said, was recognition for the City of Bowie employees for the response to the explosion emergency that happened. When an explosion occurred at a local nursing facility in June, the City of Bowie staff responded in a manner that makes the city proud. I offer this proclamation P22-22 as a means to provide a token of appreciation for over 50 employees who had a role in emergency response. The proclamation of the City Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, recognizing City of Bowie employees for their responsiveness, compassion, and coordination at the explosion emergency at the nursing facility. Whereas, before 4 a.m. on Tuesday, June 14, 2022, a large explosion occurred at the Larkin Chase Center on Health Center Drive, and whereas the incident, while shocking, unsettling, disruptive, chaotic, and scary, had no deaths or injuries, but required the immediate evacuation and relocation of 112 Larkin Chase Center residents, and whereas 51 Bowie employees were involved in the emergency event in numerous capacities to evacuate, care for, transport, communicate, and help the nursing patients connect with their loved ones, and whereas Bowie employees assisted the Larkin Chase residents by aiding them in evacuation, staffing the gym as a temporary shelter, providing food and care for 83 residents who were relocated to the gymnasium, ensuring human needs were met, communications to the public, and reconnecting loved ones, transporting residents to new nursing facilities, and whereas Bowie employees coordinated with numerous outside agencies, including Genesis Health, Maryland Department of Emergency Management, Prince George's County Office of Emergency Management, Prince George's County Department of Health, Prince George's County Department of Social Services, Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services Systems, Butler Ambulance Services, and Prince George's County Fire and EMS. And whereas the Bowie employees have represented the city very well and shown them to be conscientious, caring, effective, and excellent examples of the best in public service employees. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland hereby recognizes City of Bowie employees in emergency management, community services, communications, and police for their responsiveness, compassion, and coordination of the explosion emergency at the Larkin Chase facility. Introduced, passed, hopefully, on this date. I'd like to read the names of the employees if I could.
Please go right ahead, City Manager.
The employees were from 3 departments: community services, police department, and from the city manager's office. Andrea Walton, Antoinette Hansberry, Brian Hagan, C. Keith Oden, Charlene Taylor, Chris Hyde, Colleen Cofoot, Daniel Rogel Hudspeth, Duncan Churches, Eugene Gloucester, Gary Sockwell, Gloria Gaddy, Hank Lloyd, Jane Martin, Jarrett Gray, John Owens, Juan Murphy, Laurel Raymond, Mary Orange, Matt Corley, Mike Lonigan, Monica Leonard, Nick Spurgeon, Ray Drapeau, Ray Isquera, Robert Caldwell, Ron Lindsay, Sally Hine, Sherry Beach, Tamara Hall, Wendy Wilcox, Corporal David Redmond, Corporal Eugene White, Corporal John McMaster, Corporal Michael Johnson, MPO Ari Neal, MPO Tishana Hill, MPO Master Police Officer, for those who don't know, Wilbert Golden, MPO William Jackson, Patrol Officer Devon Brown, Patrol Officer Miles Frank, Sergeant Antoine Gibson, Sergeant Rayford Moten, Caitlin Sullivan, Lee Cornwell, Sonia Srivastava, Stephanie Lopez, Stephanie Robinson, and Una Cooper. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, City Manager, and I'd like to echo our appreciation for all of the outstanding support, services, and the immediate response that they took.
I'd like to also say that since that time, all of these people have been awarded employee incentive awards, monetary awards, for taking charge and making something very difficult look really easy for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, do we have any boards or committees? I see none listed.
Not this evening.
If we could, thank you so much. I'm going back, we'll entertain a motion at this time on the resolution.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now go on to the city boards and committees. I don't see anything listed at this time.
Not at this time.
Okay, what about, at this time, we'll move to council announcements. I will open it to council members and then I will comment. Please, Councilwoman Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to give an update regarding the Bowie Youth Council. I wanted to share with council and the public that upon review of the past year and based on the feedback from staff, our advisors, and members of the Bowie Youth Council, we decided the best course of action at this time is to take a short break from youth council activities to take some time to refine the structure and the program. During the inaugural year, we were very proud of the Bowie Youth Council as they accomplished creating a budget, joining city committees, and they held a very successful town hall meeting. So at this time, I just ask council for your indulgence for staff and I to make some revisions to the direction and the guidelines to the reference guide. I did share with you that I would have a memo regarding some of the challenges as well as proposed changes, and I will get that to you after I have met with staff and previous council advisors for their input to develop a more comprehensive document.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please let me know if
Any
you have
other
any questions.
announcements from any other council members?
Just one quick thing. I just want to reiterate to staff, big thank you working in concert with BG&E to communicate with residents around the kind of historic storm we had recently. I would like to formally ask that we put a meeting on the calendar sooner rather than later, where we can sit down with BG&E, do a debrief on the storm. I know Mr. Cornwell's already done kind of an extensive a piece on his end that he shared with us, but it would be nice if we could sit down with them and talk in a little bit more detail and hear from them directly how we can be working to kind of proactively address the future storms we're likely to get.
We've asked them to come to a city council meeting, and we're waiting for a response. We were hoping to get them here tonight, but we weren't able to do that. But we are continuing to press our request, so we'll see how it happens.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment and for a couple of things. Number one, I would really like to encourage everyone to attend the National Night Out tomorrow in support of our police officer at Allen Pond tomorrow. I think that would be a very good event and a chance for us and for our community and the city of Bowie to show their support. The other thing I would like to commend city staff and on all the events that went on even last week. From the unveiling of the mural, which I believe everyone should take the time to view and look at. I think it says and represents the city well. To the staff and the support they did for the young women who came in and the support that was given to them and the opportunity for them to hear from female staff and others to help encourage them, and even the city manager himself. I think that was very powerful and meant a lot to them. I'd like to say it was really exciting to have the first art exhibit, well, the recent one we had on Monday night. It was really exciting to have all the art exhibited, the artists to come in, and so I want to say an appreciation from the city council and the city to all the artists and all of those who participated in that as well. And again, one more time, city manager, you did a great job of talking about staff and all those people and the things they did, but I still want to go back and say what a phenomenal job staff did with us having that tornado as well as those microblasts. You know, that has caused so much damage, but they have done a yeoman's job and doing everything they can. And so again, I want to thank all of the staff for all that they've done there. And thank you very much. Having no other announcements, we will now move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have a report tonight.
Thank you. We will now go on to the consent agenda. I am opening for motion.
I move we accept the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second to accept the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. Call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. I see we have no old business on the schedule. Is that correct, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor.
Okay, we will now move on to new business and the bicycle-friendly communities. And staff will give us a brief on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce Mr. Matt Rosenblum-Jones. He's our new transportation planner who's going to present this issue to you all tonight. Matt?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You know, as Mr. Teasdale spoke a little bit before, we are going to apply for a bicycle-friendly community designation through the League of American Bicyclists. They're a nonprofit that does a lot of great work in promoting cycling in municipalities across the country. A number of other municipalities and organizations in Maryland have gotten such a designation, including Anne Arundel County, which jointly got it with Annapolis. So essentially what this designation would do is it sort of ranks us and scores us on a lot of the things we've been doing right. We've made a lot of progress recently with the adoption of a Trails Master Plan that really aimed at improving sort of the safety and the quality of our trail network, and made a lot of advancements in that area. So applying for this designation, if we were successful in getting it, would sort of be a good way to recognize the city for a lot of the progress we've made in that regard. And it is something that, you know, was included in the Trails Master Plan, was to go after this designation. So, you know, we're just bringing this really for your information tonight.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Any questions at this time? Thank you. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make, before we went for that grant, I wanted you all to be aware that what the circumstances were and what we were doing in that respect.
Thank you very much. Okay. We will now move on to the city transportation priority list, and I'll turn that back over to staff.
So, I'm not sure if you can see my screen with the presentation on it, but every year we do we make sort of two letters. One goes to Prince George's County, and the other goes to the State Department or the State Secretary of Transportation on the city's transportation priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. So this presentation is just to sort of go over those things. I think first it's helpful to explain, I guess, the sort of stages that a transportation project moves through from inception to completion. The first stage is project planning, which is essentially defining the scope and the limits of the project. The second stage is design and engineering, where you know, the project is designed and engineered. Then you move on to right-of-way acquisition, where state highway authorities or State Highway Administration or whichever agency is overseeing the project, then they will acquire real estate for the right-of-way. And then there's construction when the project is physically constructed. So for the city of Bowie, what we're going to recommend, if okay with council, is these are the top three priorities. MD 197, which is number 6 on the state's list of projects in Prince George's County. Maryland 450, which is number 8 in the county list, and Church Road, which is in the county CIP, but all funding remains beyond 6 years. So in the state consolidated transportation program, which essentially remains the same as it does in the previous year, these are the projects, but the one project I'd like to mention is Maryland 197 has moved from a project planning phase onto design and engineering, and there will be a public meeting held later this year. For the state transportation projects, the upgrade of 197 is probably the only thing on this list that changes. The city views moving that project on through the design and engineering phase, through right-of-way acquisition, and eventually into construction, and sort of speed that project along as a priority. And one of the other things that, is worth mentioning is the reexamination of MD 450 from Stony Brook to Racetrack, and trying to sort of get a Bowie Main Street type concept going. For the county transportation projects, much of this remains the same from the previous year. There is a bridge replacement for Chestnut Avenue that is ready for construction. Construction has not begun, but that is programmed for fiscal year 23. The Horsepen Branch Park, trail facilities have been completed. That includes sort of what they call pump track for bicyclists, mountain bikes, and some other improvements have been done. And while we're in that general neighborhood, it's worth mentioning that while not in the city, the WB&A bridge over the Patuxent River has begun groundbreaking. So hopefully that will be completed sometime next year. The rest of these projects, kind of remain where they are, like Governor's Bridge Road, or the Governor's Bridge Road Bridge is still on hold. The recommendations for the county transportation projects remain the same as they did in the previous letters from the year before. And the same thing for the trails and sidewalk projects. Much of this remains the same as it did the year before as far as the recommendations go. And for transit priorities, it's the same thing, continuing to sort of support transit in the city as provided by, possible circulator route and PGC link, but this remains the same as it did in the previous year before. And that's all for transportation priority lists.
Thank you very much at this time. Any questions from council? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the brief this evening. Couple of questions. You mentioned the WB&A bridge sometime next year. Anything more definitive? Will it be maybe springtime, perhaps, when the cyclists start to come out in droves?
I think we're all hoping for springtime. I've reached out to the contractor to try and get a more concrete finish date. I'm still waiting to hear back. They've groundbroken. The project started a little bit behind schedule, and with the current environment of materials and labor shortages, it could be a little bit longer. The permit is 500 days, so they would have to finish it 500 days after groundbreaking, which was June 15th. But I'm hopeful that it'll be much earlier than then, and I think everybody's hoping that it will be, so that people can take advantage of the warm weather next year. But when I get a more definitive answer, I'll get back to you and let you know.
All right. Another item that's on one of the, you did not cover here, but is on one of the letters, is the 197 landscaping project. One of the concerns, 197 has been a source of a great deal of traffic problems, not just volumes, but it's been a safety issue. Anything we can do to move that further up the list? It seems to me that's something that's should be modestly, it should be modest, a more modest cost, and presumably could have some effectiveness in terms of safety, slowing down traffic from that entire section of 197. You sound like you look like you got an opportunity to jump in. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfley. For the record, Joe Meinert, Planning Director. That project that you mentioned involves taking the median area, or the fifth lane, the middle lane of 197 as you go north from 450 towards the northern part of the city, and then landscaping that, creating some turn lanes, narrowing the lanes to do some traffic calming. What we've been told, this project has been on hold for years. There was a city task force convened probably 15 years ago or so, and recommendations were made to the state, but it's been really a low priority for the state because of the funding. They didn't have the funding to spend here. But I think a separate letter directed to the District 3 engineer that may have some value if we reached out to them specifically and asked District 3 to try to move this project forward, as opposed to sending it up to the Secretary of MDOT. So I think if we write a letter to the engineer, we may get some response.
Excellent. It's an excellent idea. Let's plan to do that. Question for you along those same lines. We have had the bollards on 197 in place now, the surprise bollards that nobody saw fit to tell us about until such time as they cropped up like mushrooms after a summer thunderstorm. Have we seen any indications of efficacy from those?
Again, that was a District 3 initiative, and I guess we can follow up and try to find out from them, number one, a statement of the purpose of those barriers to begin with. As you said, we were all surprised by the fact that they just went up one day without any real justification, without any real explanation. And so, since it's a state highway, I think having that statement come from District 3, which we can share with the residents, will inform people as to what the purpose is. As I understand it, Councilman, the future plan that they're devising for Route 197 improvements involves lowering the speed limit and trying to get traffic to drive a little more slowly through the corridor, and that these bollards or these devices that they've installed, in a sense, mimics the future pattern of the roadway design, so that it's intended to try to get people used to driving on a narrow roadway. We'll probably hear more about this as they come forward with their community meeting later this year, and these would be good questions to try to get them to answer in front of the neighborhood, so to speak. But we can follow up and get a statement from State Highway and share that with the residents as soon as possible.
I'm hopeful that their intention was, of course, to improve safety. That stretch of 197, I think, has generated over half of the traffic accidents in the city, it seems. All along through that area, there's 450 intersection 197, and of course Old 450 and Tulip Grove and Long Ridge, and then over to Fox Hill Park. It's been very problematic in terms of traffic there. So if we can get some reports on that, that would be great. I'm hopeful that there's some benefit to be shown or to be seen from the installation. The Pope Creek, I noted on the letter that's on there as well, and I would like staff to start thinking about how we move that from a wish to an action plan, so that we have some kind of a path forward on that. I'm not sure what that path forward is, but it'd be good to have that as the next step internally for ourselves to try and figure out what we should do and who we should collaborate with, what that process might look like.
Councilman Wolfley, in response to that, the city is a partner in a stakeholder group that was convened by the Park and Planning Trails Coordinator. It's an interagency group of staff people who have been meeting not frequently, but a few times. It's a large, long-term undertaking, and what we're doing now, this group is gathering information. And so there is as much collaboration as we can accomplish at the moment, and we're certainly connected to the agencies that would be involved. So just as an update, I wanted to offer that.
Let's you and I chat about that a little bit. I'd like to be a bit more looped in because it's been a long kind of standing interest of mine to move that along. So if I can be of help, that would be great. So if we could loop me in a bit more, that'd be great. The other area of concern or question is the 450 to Route 3 corridor. That's the Bowie Main Street, what have you. I also have some thoughts on the intersection at Route 3 and 450 there in terms of land. I know that when the last time there was discussion about development of the Jesuit property, there was discussion about the parcel, I forgot what the parcel number is, that's closest to near where the gas station is and so forth, that those were going to be developed, and that actually looked like it would be right in the footprint of an intersection. Is there anything we can do to put a marker out there to either acquire, to help the state to engage the state to perhaps acquire that in anticipation of the development of that road, as opposed to letting it get developed into something that later becomes a block to putting it a proper interchange.
What I would say to that question is that the state has put aside money for future right-of-way acquisition of property in the 301 corridor, but they don't have a similar initiative that I'm aware of north of US 50. And so I think it would be something that if the council wanted to include a comment in this year's letter to the State Secretary of MDOT, it might be worth bringing that to their attention. And so I'd suggest that as an additional recommendation to you tonight.
That would be great if we could add that, assuming if colleagues
Yes.
are all fine with that. Let's plan to do that. Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilman.
Mayor.
Any other
Thank you,
questions?
staff.
Councilman Seth.
I apologize if I missed this. Do we discuss the pedestrian bridge crossing 214?
So we can certainly add that to the letter if you want. We are looking into a number of opportunities to advance that. As you may know, we did a feasibility study in 2021 about that overpass over Route 214. At this point, we're looking into possibly partnering with the county to maybe advance the project forward through a grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation known as Safe Streets for All. It's a fairly aggressive grant that in terms of funding, you know, it has quite large awards, and it's for any project which would reduce roadway fatalities or injuries consistent with the Federal Transportation Administration's Vision Zero plan. So I've reached out to Prince George's County. We would have to partner with them as they're the ones who have the active Vision Zero plan, which is a prerequisite. But we were looking at possibly advancing that into the engineering phase, or maybe even, you know, engineering and build phase. But that's something we're beginning to look at as well. So that's certainly a priority as well, and we can include that in the letter.
If there's no objection from my colleagues, I'd like to include that, particularly with all the growth in that area we're anticipating. And then the only other things, I believe Councilmember Wolfley preempted most things, just clarifying that we want to preserve the pedestrian trail along 197 with any improvements that are there, and making sure that as we look at 450 improvements from Stony Brook to Route 3, that we're addressing missing trail connections at Hilltop Racetrack and White Marsh Park. Other than that, I think we're all good. Appreciated seeing all the improvements re-included for Old Bowie, and I appreciate your work on this.
Mr. Esteve, I'm sorry, I have a correction that is included in the county letter, that overpass already.
Oh, great.
And we're continuing to actively look at ways to advance that project through the grant opportunity as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilman Harris?
Thank you so much. Quick question. You mentioned that the Governor Bridge project was on hold. Do you have any further status on that from the county?
I do not, but I can reach out to the county and see if there's been any movement. But as far as I know, there's been no updates.
Right. Oh, go ahead.
The one
Joe.
thing I can add, Councilmember Harrison, is that when the Bowie Master Plan was recently approved earlier this year, the County Council made an amendment to ensure that the language stayed in the plan about rehabbing the bridge and making it usable again. So the staff had recommended a policy to take the bridge out of the plan as a project, and the County Council in the end came back and inserted that in per the city's recommendation. So it's still there as a project. It's in the out years of the county's CIP, so there is no funding at this point. But we do make that point every year when we do the budget letter to the county, and we want to keep it on the county's radar. So we're aware of that. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I believe right now it's kind of a struggle with Anne Arundel County, because as you know, we share in that bridge. So we're not in agreement right now with kind of what we want and what they want. So still working through that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from any other council members? That it? I'm sorry.
We need to talk to us.
Did I ask a question? Well, we're actually not in a position to just take questions from there. That's why we have the speaking. It's about, well, let me just help you there. How we typicly do with the council is that we have an opportunity to do it. Does the staff have anything that they would like to add regarding Mitchellville Road? And
No, I would simply suggest that taking questions from the audience during council meeting outside of your regular agenda sets a bad precedent for you in the future.
okay. I'm sorry, ma'am. Thank you.
Can I just make a point?
Mr. Mayor, we'll be happy to take her questions and get back to her.
And that's why I was saying,
And
City
so
Manager, if you
if
could
she'll
just,
come over here and
you can share
talk to
the
us, we'll get one.
question. Yeah. And that's the point I was making, that
And I followed
the city manager, if they want.
the city attorney was trying to get your attention. That's all. That's why I looked over at you.
And we'll bear with this for one moment.
Going forward for future meetings, I think we want to have an intro, kind of dialogue of some sort of intro commentary, saying that
Yes.
anybody, if they're interested in having anything to speak upon on any of the things this evening, please see the city clerk so that you can sign up now.
Yeah. And I think that would be very good.
Just something.
That helps people understand. We can move on now at this point. Okay. Any other questions from council? Hearing none, I think there's no action we need to take this evening, correct?
Mayor, we would like you to concur with the staff memo that had the recommendations in it. So if we can get your concurrence, we'll prepare the letter to the state and the letter to the county based on your...
Yes. And Joe, I think we concurred with that one addition that we have from Councilman DeFore Wolfe. I think we concurred as a council. I think that's, and I don't think we need to take a vote on that. Or
We'll
anything.
take that as a consensus, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We will now move on to item C, the zoning update.
Again, Joe Meinert, Planning Director. I was requested to provide council with a briefing as to the current efforts of the county to conduct the sectional map amendment related to the Bowie master plan. And you were given a briefing at your July 11th meeting by Mr. Thomas Lester, who came here from Park and Planning to discuss the schedule of the sectional map amendment. And at that time, they were in the process of preparing letters to all of the residents within the planning area, all of the property owners, to let them know of the opportunity to request a rezoning through the comprehensive rezoning process related to the Bowie Master Plan. And so those letters have gone out. We've advised council of that about a week ago, and the residents have until August 11th to submit an application form to request rezoning under the new plan. The purpose of the plan sectional map amendment is to adjust the zoning pattern to conform to the land use and zoning policies contained in the master plan. And so that master plan is available on the Park and Planning website. There's a chapter in the plan that's called the Comprehensive Zoning Chapter, and that chapter identifies properties that are recommended for rezoning during this sectional map amendment. So if you were to reference Section 6 of the Bowie Master Plan, they typically focus on changing the zoning in the rural and agricultural areas, looked at some of the industrial areas, including the Zug Road area in the Old Town Bowie location, some of the properties near Bowie State University, the recommendations in the Bowie Local Town Center, which was of some debate when we made our recommendations in the master plan about the actual zoning of the Bowie Local Center. And so these are the types of locations that are mentioned in Section 6 of the master plan comprehensive zoning chapter. At this point, though, the Park and Planning Commission has set the joint public hearing for the District Council and the Planning Board on the sectional map amendment. So this, in accordance with the schedule that Mr. Lester had presented on July 11th, the county has scheduled the joint public hearing for 5 p.m. on September 27th. And so that would be to entertain any requests that have been made by property owners, as well as the list of properties that Park and Planning will be coming out in concert with this Section 6 of the master plan that I've just described. So that information is forthcoming, but the public hearing is now scheduled for September 27th. That means that the city will have an opportunity to take a position on your agenda on September 19th. And so this schedule has just become aware. We've just received the letter from the county on Friday of their September 27th hearing date. So City Council would have a hearing on the 19th of September, and we would also take this to the Bowie Advisory Planning Board the week before on September 13th. So at this point, there is no list published that we can share with you, but as soon as that list does become available, it would be our intention to provide that to staff or to council immediately in preparation for your hearing that would be on September 19th. And with that, that's the update that I wanted to provide, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council members may have.
One simple question, and it's knowing that we will get there eventually, will city staff be planning on attending that meeting on the 27th?
Yes, we would take your position statement and appear at the hearing and put those comments on record.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, Councilman Staff?
Yes, real quick, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Minert, so the challenge that I think a lot of us are having right now is we're getting detailed questions from constituents and just general questions from constituents like what is changing and how will it affect me? And the best we can do is send them to a 366-page document available at the Parks and Planning website, which is also available for print for $15 with a $5 shipping and handling fee. So what we would really love between now and September 27 is something that either we are providing or that Parks and Planning can provide that kind of breaks the whole thing down into simple bite-sized pieces, summarizes the areas where changes can be expected, what those changes are, with a general bent towards what we kind of know residents are going to be interested in, right? Namely, what areas are being upzoned, where is housing going to be possible where it's not presently, where is density going to get more dense, not less dense, what's going to be preserved. Is there any way that we can try and distill this a little bit for our residents and make it available on the city website so that they can have their questions a little bit more easily answered ahead of September 27?
Well, Mr. Stev, the simple answer is that the information that affects the properties has already been discussed as part of the approval of the Bowie Master Plan, and that zoning, comprehensive zoning chapter that I mentioned is what ties it all together. I just recently discovered, I mean, the plan is not published in hard copy yet. Mr. Lester mentioned that when he was here, that as soon as he gets those published, we're going to give everyone here on the council a copy. But I did discover last week that they have the final version on the Park and Planning website of the master plan. So everything has been incorporated into the final documents there. But essentially we're talking about chapter or section 6, which is probably only about 10 pages of that plan. We could put this on our web page. We have a sectional map amendment city web page. We can post this. It includes the list of properties that are recommended by the plan. And the other companion document that would be worth noting is the final changes that were made by the county council as they approved the Bowie master plan. There were 12 revisions that were made involving a number of properties and a number of policies, but the property-specific amendments, I believe there's about 5 of those. We could post this document on the city website tomorrow. So I can do that for the community and let them see what's available. But actually, I'm really surprised with this letter that I said we just received on Friday advertising the September 27th hearing. And Park and Planning, the planning director says, once available, the proposed SMA can be viewed and downloaded on the master plan website. Well, they're not telling us when it's available. So to answer your question directly, we can do the best we can with the information that we have from the plan itself and the revisions that were approved. But there is nothing out there yet that we can share with someone that Park and Planning has produced. So the August 11th date will be significant in that individual property owners will submit requests. There will be a list of those requests. And then when the document gets put out by Park and Planning, it will combine these things that I mentioned into one big list. And so that's the information that we would want the public to react to and that we would make recommendations to you on September 19th. So we'll try as soon as we can get the information, as soon as it becomes available, we'll get that to you and we'll put it on the web page as well.
Perfect. No, if you could take the simplified items that you mentioned and put those on the city website, that'd be really helpful. I think you said it was chapter 6 and then there was like the 5 property changes. That'd be great. September 27th, I mean, at what point do we need to send a polite letter to Parks and Planning saying, hi, can you delay this a little bit so that our residents can take a look at the information once it's available?
When Mr. Lester was here, he mentioned about the possibility of a second joint public hearing. So if the process does start to move a little too quickly, that people can't be involved, there's always that opportunity to ask for the second public hearing. And I'm sure if the city council were to request that, the county would probably go along with it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mr. Minor. Appreciate your help on this.
Any other questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Minor, and thank you, and we look forward to being made aware as soon as that document, that information does become available. Okay, having said that, I think we have completed the agenda, and I will open the floor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn and move to closed session. To adjourn the closed session under statutory authority of the Maryland Annotated Code, State Government Article subsection 3-305B14. Before a contract is awarded or bids are open to discuss a matter directly related to the negotiating strategy or the contents of a bid or proposal, public discussion or disclosure would adversely impact the ability of the public body to participate in the competitive bidding or proposal process.
Second. It's been moved and probably second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Motion carries. I'd like to say, as always, thank you to the citizens of Bowie for joining us. Thank you to staff for all that you do. And again, to my colleagues on the council, thank you for all that you do as well. I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you, and good night.
Good evening, everyone.